Hello and welcome to Leezah's Lair. I'm glad that you found this YouTube channel, and today's topic is going to be about dating. Leezah's Lair is a YouTube community for the older adults who are visiting Second Life, so this topic will probably pertain more to older adults and the whole dating landscape for older adults. The first thing that I wanted to mention is that a lot of times when people are interested in dating, they're not really sure how to go about it. And so maybe I'll give some perspectives on what I've heard from other people and some advice that they have to offer, and because of some of their experiences, good and bad. One thing when they are out there on the dating site is they're trying to, or even in Second Life, they're trying to decide how do they want to portray themselves. And most people want to portray themselves positively, but there's some drawbacks to that, because what happens is sometimes people can create a persona that really is fake. Some of the examples are people may say, oh, I'm into the arts, I'm into travel, I like to read, I like sports, I like conversation, and that may be how they want to see themselves. But if someone were to ask them, oh, you like the arts, what do you do exactly? What have you done in the last month related to that? What have you done in the last 6 months related to that? What have you done in the last year related to that? And if you don't really have any answers, I think sometimes they may think that you've just said that just to sound interesting. And the same thing with people who say, oh, I like to travel, but then they see that you spend most of your time in Second Life at your computer. So when are you actually traveling if that's something that you're saying is a big part of your life, if they only see you for many hours sitting at your computer? And if people are saying, oh, I like to read, and they ask you, well, what books have you read in the last week? What are you reading right now? What have you read in the last month? What have you read in the last 6 months? And you don't have any books that you are reading, then they may think that that's not really truthful about you. And the same thing with sports. A lot of guys say, oh, I'm into sports, and really they're into watching sports, which is still into sports, but I think there's a difference between being a spectator and actually getting out there and participating physically in sporting activities. And I think everyone would like to say, yeah, I like to have interesting conversation. But if you're not reading, if you're not traveling, if you're not creating new experiences in your life, and if most of your time is just spent at your computer, you do have a lot of conversations about what's on TV or what you've read on the computer, or maybe what you've experienced on the computer. But I just think that life becomes more interesting to talk about if you're actually out there creating some new experiences that aren't necessarily on the computer. Nothing wrong with being on the computer, because I certainly spend my time on the computer as well, but it's not how I spend all of my time. I think another thing is that a lot of people are looking for someone who's happy in their lives, and I think that that's a good thing to want. But then I think it's also important to ask yourself, are you really happy in your own life? And look at your life choices. Do your life choices reflect a priority of being happy? Have you made life choices in order to increase your own happiness? Because I think what we look for in other people, if they are that, whatever that one thing is that you're looking for, or those several things, if they are that, they're going to look for how you have produced that in your own life. And so I think that that's something that's really kind of important. The other thing I know that people mention a lot has to do with appearance. I think physical chemistry is important, and I think most people think it's important. Does that sustain a relationship? No, but I think that they think it's important to a degree. And but I think that a lot of guys you'll find, and maybe older guys, I don't know, may have this more so than younger ones. I'm not really sure at all. But some guys like to laugh off their appearance and laugh off the fact that they don't know how to dress well, or laugh off the fact that they haven't had a haircut in 10 years, or that they don't really know, what's current or trendy. Not that that's something that is important, particularly for people who may be older. However, if you are a person who is a man who wants a woman who pays attention to her appearance, then I think it's only fair that you project that you are somebody who pays close attention to your own. And sometimes, there are some guys out there who want a stylish woman who's fit, who's, really physically attractive, and they don't groom themselves very well. They really haven't built a wardrobe that is as stylish as the lady that they would like. And maybe some women don't care about that. Maybe they want to be trendy and stylish and they don't care if the guy that they're with is in overalls. But I just think that if you are looking for that in someone, that you should make sure that you are that as well, in terms of appearance, whatever that may be. The other thing I think is that a lot of times maybe men have asked, what do women want? Well, I'll tell you, women are not the same. Women don't have the same standards for what they're looking for in a relationship. They don't have the same values, backgrounds, or anything. So I just don't think there is a checklist of what all women want, or even what most women want. I think that when you are interested in dating, you have to decide, when you're talking to that person, is this person looking for some episodic encounters with different people? And so they're in the dating scene, but they're not really interested in dating one person in particular, and they're not really interested in dating, one person on a regular basis. They just want to date different people and have different experiences. So if that person is interested in episodic encounters, and so are you, great. If that person is interested in finding one person and really only interested in a short-term relationship, doesn't want to put any expectations out there that it could lead to marriage or moving in or whatever else someone else may be looking for, then that's fine too. Or thirdly, if that person is saying, I'm dating because I'm looking for a long-term relationship, I'm looking for a marital partner, I think those are three very different things. So I think right out of the gate in dating, it's important to know, is this person discussing expectations that would suggest they want episodic encounters, a short-term relationship with one person, or a long-term relationship with one person? Or maybe that person isn't into monogamy at all. Even in a long-term relationship, there are people that get married who are really interested in swinging, and even older people as well who are interested in an open relationship. So I think that those are things to kind of find out about at the onset as you're having those initial conversations. Yeah, you're dating, I'm dating. What type of dating are you interested in? But if you want a relationship that has more substance, I think it's important to kind of delve into family dynamics. What is that person used to? Does that person spend a lot of time with their family? How much influence does that person's family have on the choices that that person is making and their activities? Some people are very close to their families. They spend every single weekend with their families members, or even their children. Even if some older adults have adult children and they talk to them every day on the phone, or they spend several times a week with their adult children or grandchildren. So I think it's important to understand that person's family dynamics, because that will impact the dating situation. I think that most people like to spend time with their friends. I think friends tell you a lot about someone. So if someone wants you to meet their friends early on, I think that's a good fact-finding mission. I think a lot of people want an honest person, a person who they could have an emotional connection with, a person who they have shared values with. And I think your values are reflected in your choices in your life that you've made so far. I think some people are still interested in someone with ambition. Even older people want to know that someone feels a life purpose. If they're spiritual, they want someone who has a solid spiritual life. And I think most people want someone who has a solid mental and emotional state, and who's not racist and sexist and ageist and homophobic. And I also think people who have hobbies would want to be able to teach and share a hobby. So that's what I think. Leave your comments.